If you understand him, it is not God. St. Augustine. As John Lennox might argue, many atheists reject a version of God that doesn't actually exist, one that falls short of the profound, transcendent divine described in classical theology. Richard Dawkins, like many people in science, looks for God in the world around us, seeking proof in the physical that verifies his existence. It's much like the story of Moses standing before the burning bush, as recounted in the book of Exodus, when he asked God to identify himself. We are conditioned to label God as a categorical object within the physical world. And since we cannot do this, since God doesn't fit neatly into our categories or frameworks, we reject him altogether. But what if the way we approach God is completely wrong? In Exodus 3:14, God responds to Moses with profound simplicity, ego sum qui sum, I am who I am. What God is essentially telling Moses is that Moses is asking the wrong question. God isn't a thing in the world that can be named and labeled. He transcends categorization entirely. To quote St. Augustine, using his language, God is the prius, prior to thought, prior to language, prior to any attempt at categorization. That's why St. Augustine famously declared, Si comprehendis, non es Deus. If you understand him, it is not God. Language and thinking are powerful tools for navigating the physical world, but when it comes to understanding God, they become the very obstacles blocking access to the divine. This perspective is not unique to Christian mysticism. It resonates across spiritual traditions worldwide. Consider the words of the great Sufi poet Rumi, "Silence is the language of God. All else is poor translation." Early mystics, whether Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, or Hindu, were not concerned with labeling or defining God. Instead, they sought direct personal experience of the divine. They yearned for truth through love, connection, and presence rather than intellectual analysis. Even Jesus addressed this directly. When the Pharisees asked him, "When will the kingdom of God come?" he replied, "The kingdom of God will not come with observable signs, for the kingdom of God is within you." Luke 17:20 and 21. Growing up as a Christian, I was taught to see God as an external higher being separate from myself. Yet, as I've grown older, Jesus' words have taken on new meaning. In the words of St. Augustine, God is not ens sumo, the highest being among beings. Rather, God is ipsum es, being itself. Christian mystics, alongside many spiritual traditions, assert that the divine resides within each person. God is not merely the greatest among a category of beings, which would imply comparison and limitation. God is being itself, the ground from which all forms arise and depend upon. This intelligence is not personal and has nothing to do with IQ. It exists prior to thought and language. When the mind becomes still and silent, that intelligence speaks. That's why the Old Testament reminds us, "Be still and know that I am God." Psalm 46:10. In Hinduism, the foundation of all creation is referred to as Brahman. Yet Brahman is not different from the individual self, as stated in the Chandogya Upanishad, "that thou art, tat tvam asi." Indian mystic Ramana Maharshi explained it beautifully. The pure mind is itself Brahman. It therefore follows that Brahman is not other than the mind of God. So, what exactly is this pure mind? We are made in the image of God, but not because of our physical bodies. It's because of our minds, not the individual, ego-driven mind filled with thoughts and desires, but the awareness behind all of that. This universal mind, the logos of creation itself, is what connects us to the divine. The pure mind is the universal consciousness we call God. It is being itself, yet we are rarely here. We are rarely in touch with this being. Why? Because we are always in a state of becoming. This constant striving, as this endless push toward the future, creates a wall between us and God, between us and our true nature. We are constantly chasing something in the future. We want to become richer, smarter, more beautiful, more recognized. We live in time, think in time, yet God exists outside the realm of time, beyond thought and its egoic pursuits. God is not something outside ourselves. God is woven into the fabric of creation itself. But are we ever truly present? Take an honest look at your relationships. Time is always involved. We love because we fear dying alone. Future. We love because someone carries our genetic code. We love because someone has cared for us in the past. Our version of love often boils down to a commercial exchange. I give you this, you give me that. Yet, as Jesus famously proclaimed in Matthew 5, "But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. If you love those who love you, what reward will you get? Are not even the tax collectors doing that? And if you greet only your own people, what are you doing more than others?" At its core, the search for God comes down to one word: love. To love without conditions, to love without expectations, that is a state of absolute presence. That is being itself. That is God. Living in a state of constant presence means never accumulating or clinging to insults or praise. It means immediately letting go, forgiving, and moving on. It means never wanting anything from yourself, from others, or from life. Wanting is desire, and desire is tied to thought and time. It's all ego-driven. This is what it means to live beyond time, beyond the constraints of past and future. God does not require rituals or demand attendance at church. There is no struggle to reach God, no grand sacrifice needed, except the sacrifice of our own ego, our selfish ambitions, demands, desires, and fears. To serve others selflessly, to alleviate suffering in the world, to simply be instead of trying to become, to just be love. And you don't need to wait until death to test this idea. Live this way now and observe what happens to your consciousness. Will it even be your consciousness anymore? By reframing how we think about God, not as a distant deity, but as the essence of being and love itself, we open ourselves to a deeper understanding of both the divine and our place within it.